that in the minutes that we have before us, we are going to talk and be edified and be blessed and be encouraged even to have a better understanding of communication within the confines of marriage, and even a little bit of the confines of marriage, just for the sake of one or two people that may not necessarily be within the marriage institution at the moment, probably because for them it's a future dream. Maybe they passed there, and because of some issues that life happens, they are not within marriage at the moment. So the topic of today is towards a healthy marriage. And as we talk about towards a healthy marriage in terms of effective communication, we are going to look at the levels of communication and conclude with constructive conflict resolution. One of the things I need to say is that anytime you're given an opportunity to speak, one topic can have very different perspectives. And so sometimes as a speaker, it's not easy to pick one perspective, but at the end of the day, so that you stay relevant to the audience, you must pick a perspective that close probably to the heart of the people that sat down to think about the topic. And so today I'm talking about levels of communication and how within those levels we get to understand ourselves better, where we are, what we are doing, and what we are not doing well, and what we need to do when it comes to the institution of marriage. I mean, so as we talk about communication, let's remember, and for those of you that attended the meeting that I was in, the very last time I said, one of the things we can never leave out is a definition by Donald Smith, founder of Daystar University, who apparently is a guru in matters communication. And he says that communication is creating understanding generally in the society, not just in marriage. So let's remember, if you're not creating understanding, whether with your spouse or a family member, clearly communication is not taking place. And probably you need to go back to the drawing board and say, which part of this statement don't you understand? You know, people sometimes think it's a rude statement because someone will say, which part of no don't you understand? In other words, someone is saying, okay, you've told me no, but before I accept your no, can you please break it down? Why are you saying no? Basically, communication is creating understanding. Communication is also the actionable transfer of information from one person, group, or place to another through writing, speaking, or using a medium that provides a means of understanding. Like today, I believe the main means of information dissemination is me, the speaker, but we are using a channel of technology called Zoom, and some of you on your computers, others are on your laptops, on your phones. Simplistic definition of what communication is and how it makes sense to us. So as we talk about that, let's remember, communication is the most crucial issue in marriage. Some may argue that, but let's look at it from the perspective of communication transcends everything, because every time we are discussing issues, whether positively or negatively, let's remember we use communication to communicate and create understanding on that matter. For example, if we are talking about kids, we communicate. If we are talking about money, we are communicating. If we are talking about sex, career change, life transitions, we are communicating. And these things can be addressed with open, honest, open communication. And that is why I justify the statement that communication transcends everything. Including future plans. You must communicate about them. Otherwise, your partner might be left guessing as to whether there are any plans. And that is why you hear, even in ordinary relationships, when young people are dating, or one of them is not sure whether they are dating, one will ask, what exactly are we? I need to know, where are we heading with this? So communication is very important. So there's a study that showed that 86% of divorced couples admitted they had problems in marriage. There's a word there that's missing, I'm sorry, communication. A lack of communication almost always preceded every problem that arises in marriage. I remember one time I told a friend of mine who's also a communications expert that I was quoting a statement that someone had said that if all doors are closed, always make sure the communication door stays open. But this person was quick to correct me and told me, Not always, because what kind of communication are we talking about? There's communication that's really toxic, that instead of healing, it destroys. So in this case, I mean, we all learn. We are in the school of life. I added the fact that yes, let the door stay open, but healthy communication, not just any form of communication. So that study was done, and it showed that 86% of the couples admitted there's always a communication problem, and these already were divorced couples. Case scenarios, for example, impacts of a person's upbringing when communicated becomes less of a problem. Most of the problems in marriage have to do with people not understanding their spouse and where they came from. For example, if someone was born, if I look aside a bit, because I'm also checking the time so that I'm within the time limit, impact of a person's upbringing, if it's communicated, it becomes less of a problem in a relationship. A man might have come from a very poor background, and they have never known what it means to be generous. Yet the lady came from a home where money was dished left, right, center. Dad could give you a lot of money. Then you are married, and the man is actually giving you the bare minimum if you're not working, for example. And if you're working, they will want you to account for every cent. And that can become a problem. But the moment you understand where they are coming from, their background, then it becomes less of a problem. Communication about a person's personality makes it clear and easier to handle the other person. Why I'm saying this is because if you don't understand your partner's personality, you'd wonder why they are so loud, and you're thinking, why are you embarrassing me? But that's their personality. So when you understand their personality, you will just appreciate who they are, and they will appreciate who you are, and it will not bother you as much. In case of in terms of a partner cheating, if a partner communicates openly, but I've put a disclaimer there and I've said, not always though, because we know there are people that have confessed, and that was the last day that union was called a marriage. So one has to be very careful, pray for wisdom. If a situation ever like that ever happens, God forbid. But in the event that the other partner is willing to forgive, then it would be easier than waiting and then one day they discover, and what we call a ticking time bomb. And all this happens when communication takes place. Communication also about your spending habits. Some people are bad spenders. When I say bad, I mean they can really spend, and sometimes they're not the ones looking for the money. And then communicate about your difficulty in being sociable. There are partners that are not social at all. So you're forcing them to become friends of your friends, and they go there, they're looking dull, and it's messing the evening. So you need to look for a way, of course, I know it's not easy for someone to say, I'm not a social person. But the moment you know they're not social, you work around their lack of being social. Communicate about things, styles you don't like from your partner in terms of physical intimacy. Do not act disgusted. So in short, I'm saying this, even in this physical intimacy, communication is very important. Your partner cannot read between the lines. Communicate, talk, and say, I don't like this. Basically communicate about everything and anything. And please remember, as you say, I don't like this, can you at least say what you like? Just say what you like. Don't say, I don't like this. Then if you don't like it, what else do you like? Let it be clear what you like. So what does it really mean to communicate? One of the things we need to understand, it's not necessarily having long, deep conversation about intimate things for the sake of it, so that you say, oh, we really communicate with my spouse. Because sometimes it's not easy in the world we live in to communicate or talk for a long time because of our work schedule. Some of you are having young kids, and there's also fatigue of work and also ministry. So I think when we talk about communication, it is not a uniform one fit for all kind of a thing, but I think we can say there are the small things you do on a daily basis throughout the day, depending on what part of life you're at. There are people that can spare 2 hours, 3 hours, go sit in a restaurant, sometimes even 4 hours, others even 5 hours. But some of you, if today you get 2 hours to sit together and talk, it's almost considered we need to gift ourselves for this. The kids are calling for homework. Your husband is on travel 3 weeks, and by the time he comes back, he's so tired, 2 days later, he's required for another trip. It's not healthy, but I'm saying you need to look for ways to make this intentional and so that it occurs every day. And that way you keep your communication lines open. Please note that there are people that live together, proximity-wise, wako close, but they rarely talk. There is no even communication. It's almost like they are distant relatives and sharing a roof, if you know what I'm saying. So you can be close, but not communicating. You can be far, but you do what? But you communicate. So let there be a balance when it comes to that. So let's look at the levels of communication quickly in the interest of time, because we need to cover as much as the Lord helps us today and as much as the time will allow. The basic level is the very first level is basic information, whereby it has to do with conveyance of details. Your wife telling you, the guy, or the husband telling the wife, depending on who's cooking that day, dinner is ready, or your son needs a new bike. This kind of level relates to facts, nothing much about it. And it happens in our day, not in our days, maybe in our parents' days. There used to be this thing of mmeshindaje mzuri, watoto wako sawa, dad watches news, good night, everybody goes to sleep. Now, that is an example of what we would say the basic level of communication. Level number 2 is partnership, sharing of needs and responsibilities as partners would do in a joint venture. So some marriages are at this level where partnership ni huyu analipa rent, this one buys the food, this one pays school fees. This union is more of a partnership than a marriage, even though it's a marriage, but at the level of partnership, and they mostly talk about financial responsibilities. Then there's the level of conflict resolution, and we know that even good marriages have conflict. And someone said, if you do not conflict in your marriage, one of you is pretending. If you do not have differences in your marriage, one of you is acting. And we need to agree that it's okay sometimes to fight, but fight fair when it's unavoidable. Let not your home become a war zone. It's not be kind, listen, and seek understanding from your partner. Level number 4 is the level of connection. There's a mark there that says, every time I see you, I fall in love all over again. I'm trying to imagine how possible that is after 40 years, but all things are possible with God to them that believe, and to them that deliberately choose to work towards making their love alive every day. So level 4 connection in marriage, relationships, connections, remember, are not automatic. It's something a couple needs to work towards and deliberately make choices, like maintaining eye contact when you're talking to one another, physical affection, the words you say to each other. If we are not careful in the world we live today, and in the days when people would say, okay, I know we are mixed here, you're calling each other mama fulani, nipatie ile. Basically, your relationship is all about this person has to get the socks made. Are my shirts ironed? Are the kids happy? Have they gone to sleep? And so you can, are they happy? Have they showered? So basically the relationship, if you're not careful, could rotate around those responsibilities of a marriage, yet you lose the connection. A study showed that during an average meal, a couple will have 100 points of connection. But then this we need to take with a pinch of salt, because I know not every couple sits together at dinner because sometimes of conflicting work schedules. Others, they're just used to everybody serving food from the kitchen and going to eat from the, from the living room. But I just want to say this is a point where you could easily reconnect during meals and do like some people do. You put a basket on the dining table and make sure every phone is put there off or on totally silent mode, and nobody picks the calls. You converse, you talk, you have a connection, including even with your children, because I don't think we are limiting this communication to couples only. Even your children would benefit from that. And sometimes you almost feel like, yeah, I can see the person I married. We enjoyed long conversations. Let not the world of busyness steal that away from us. Level number 5, personal revelation. Revelation sounds spiritual and all out there, but I think it's a thing of disclosure, a high level of disclosure, self-disclosure in the institution of marriage and also in ordinary relationships. Of course, depending on the closeness you have with this other person, not necessarily sexual, because again, that would be a perverted version of relationship. But in this case, if I'm talking of intimacy, it has to be between a married couple, legally married, but we also have other relationships that are very healthy. And this involves truly sharing with each other, truly. Talk about your feelings and emotions. Tell this person the things that you wouldn't tell someone else. The other day we went to minister in one of the churches in the city, and I was telling the people as I introduced my husband that this is the man that sometimes tells me the things that I don't want to hear because I know he's telling me the truth. And I'm also the person that tells him things that he knows are true. I will tell him that joke was out of line on the altar. And he will appreciate it and keep quiet. Sometimes he will not even say anything. But later he will be like, yeah, I tell him, please never repeat that joke again. The rest were laughing, but to me, it was not funny. But I'm the one person who will tell you that that joke was out of line, according to me, your wife, you know. So talk about your feelings, your emotions. Let your spouse into your world. In other words, let them know you for real. Let them know you for real. I don't know whether that's a question. Okay. Yeah, keep the questions coming. So let the spouse into your world. Do not keep secrets. Process negative feelings together as a couple. There are times you will go through stuff that, whether you like it or not, and I know men like wearing a thick skin, there's nothing wrong with really being open to your wife, particularly. But you know, there are discussions that have been going on, and people ask, how much can a man be vulnerable to the woman that expects you to be strong for them? In other words, when everybody is weak in the family, they want the man to be strong. What about the point at which the man is weak? So I think at the end of the day, there should be room for this man to be able to process negative feelings, even to the wife, you know, and say, I feel discouraged. I feel maybe I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And as a woman, you need to, you know, make him feel, as much as you're not where you want to be, as far as we are concerned, you've been really our our Prince Charming, so to speak, and you encourage him basically. But don't join the rest of the world in saying, yeah, you know, wanaume wengine wamefanya hii, wamefanya ile, you know. So be that person that encourages your spouse. Let off steam after a bad day at work. Allow me to say that the other day, my husband made a joke and said, I think this probably a few months ago, he told me, sometimes I feel like I work at Daystar. And I told him, okay, I know why he's saying that. Anytime I go through something at work and I need to share with somebody, you can guess the first person that will know about it. So he told me, hey, sometimes I feel like I work at Daystar. I told him, yeah, who else can I tell anyway? So let's it out. Let your anger out, but do not vent. Talk. And in this case, especially if it's him or her that has offended you, do not keep it in. In my early years of marriage, we've been married for 25 years now. This is our 26th year. I think there are times I would hurt myself by keeping things inside. But over the years, I've learned to talk, and I've also learned that life is short. I'm not here forever, so I might as well enjoy it. So I talk, but I don't vent, and I do not make my husband feel bad by me keep being too blunt. Okay, there's a question here. Maybe I could pick this one before I move to the other level. Does our personality, or do our personalities affect our effective communication? And if yes, how do we sort it out? Yes, maybe I can answer that and then I move on. Definitely our personalities affect how we communicate. I have relatives that are so quiet, you will almost pity them for being quiet, but they have no problem. They can sit somewhere for an hour or two and they're okay. You ask them, can I give you a cup of tea? You feel so bothered for them, but then they're not bothered. But now imagine in a marital situation, you're married to this very quiet person and you're a kasuku. It is, I don't know. I don't know what to say, but I would say learn the language of your spouse. If they are talkative, let them talk and talk and talk. if your spouse just gives you one answer, over the years you must learn to tell him, okay, can you at least add one more word, so that at least you put some meat to that conversation. So personalities will definitely affect how we communicate. I think the disaster would be when both of you are so talkative and none is willing to take a break so that the other one can speak. But there has to be a way that each of you learns to be wise in how you communicate. I think after 25 years, I've learned that I'm an ambivert and my spouse is an extrovert. But depending on some situations and where he is, he can be so quiet, you can imagine, you can almost think he doesn't talk. So I think also we can say personalities are environment specific. You can be in a particular environment, and for some reason, you just realize this is a cold environment, not cold in terms of weather, but receptibility. The people are not accepting you. You just choose to be quiet and only speak when you are required to speak. So that is what I would say regarding that. Personal revelation, we've already handled that. So let's move on to level number 6, which talks about intimate communication. And in this case, it is an expression of love. After you express your love, you can do it through words of affection. You can do it physically. Some would call it the public display of affection, PDA, whispers of love. When was the last time you told your spouse, I love you? Just I love you randomly, not because wamekuchotea ama wewe umewachotea, or you've made the best meal, or you bought them a nice gift and they say, oh, I love you based on this. No, just I love you, you know? God says, I love the world so much that he gave his only begotten son, so that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. So I think God in very many ways whispers, I love you. When he saves you from an accident, when he keeps you healthy, those are the many ways God says, I love you. So how about also telling your spouse, I love you? Ladies love being told they look nice. Tell your spouse, you look good. I love that outfit. I love how you smell, you know, I love your cologne. And of course, there's one here that I said, you need to tell your spouse, you're aging gracefully, but please do it with a pinch of salt, especially for the ladies, because if you tell a lady you're aging gracefully, they might think it's a subtle way of telling them, umeanza kuzeeka, kwa hivyo jichunge, usikule sana, you know? So don't say you're aging gracefully if you don't understand your partner. But being told you're aging gracefully is like being told you're 50, but actually you look like you're 40. That's a major compliment. Any lady will love it. And the ladies in the house, I know you say amen to that. So just be wise. Be wise when you tell your partner about just say nice things, expressions of love. That's intimate. So at this point, I will ask our moderator to give us the survey so that we see where we are in our, let's not assume just because you've been married for 1 year, you're in the romantic, 2 years, you're in the romantic stage, you know. So let's see, let's have the survey quickly, and then we move on to the next thing kindly. You answer the question. Yes, the role of effective communication, you have one question. Identify, we'll answer one at the moment. Identify the level of communication that best describes your current situation. You can only choose one. So kindly, let's see how many, what point we are at in terms of, we can give this a minute or two. So from the results here, the people that are at the basic are 24% out of the respondents. Partnership, there are 18%. Those that are in conflict resolution are 4%. That's encouraging, you know, to a large extent. Connection, they are 22%. Personal revelation, 18%. Intimate communication, 13%. As much as I may not get to each of you personally, but you can see we have a lot of romantic love, 17%. Oh, okay. This other question was meant for another time, but it's okay. We can just pick it and then we don't go back to it. Disillusionment, there's a 17%. Romantic love, we have 17%. It's interesting, there's a tie there. And then disillusionment, adjustment, and contentment, there is a 33%. And there are people that are not sure. that are at 33%. And that tells you marriages need a lot of healing indeed. We may not have one fit for all, but as we talk about how to handle conflicts, and of course, as we talk about healthy communication in the few minutes that are remaining, then at least we will have gone a step ahead in understanding how we can make our marriages work. At Basic Information, it's interesting because this is a level that couples are just barely coping. Yani, it's like they're sharing a roof, and my prayer is that God will help us to go past 24%. I mean, we'll go downwards in terms of move to the other level. Partnership, 18%. Not too bad because it means a great number is taking responsibility. Conflict, it's a good sign, even though at the same time, it could mean either people have just decided, let's move on, or they have grown in the area of conflict resolution. I love 22% for connect because it shows there's a connection between couples. At least it's not below 15%. Personal revelation and vulnerability, 8. Well, let me leave it at that, but needs work. And intimate communication needs a lot of work. Romantic love, in the era we are living in, you have to be intentional. And then, of course, there are those that are dissolution. But the good thing is there is hope in every situation, and no matter how difficult it is. I will stop. I think I'll stop sharing the results and move on. Maybe let me check whether there's a question. Someone is saying calmness, relax. I'm not so sure. Found it. Okay. I guess that had to do with the aspect of the response. Let's move on. We've done the survey. So let's look at navigating conflict constructively, because many times when we talk about poor communication, there are many times it may lead to conflict, even sometimes silent conflict. As we talk about conflict, we define it as a serious disagreement and argument about something important. Many times, of course, people will disagree about trivial things, but on many occasions, it has to do with something important. If two people or groups are in conflict, they have a serious disagreement. Okay, we don't need this. Or they have not yet reached an agreement. Please do not hope for a marriage conflict resolution to happen on its own. Please deal with it. Stalling is not advisable, and autocorrect is not an option that is available when you're dealing with conflict, not just in marriage, even in other situations. Major causes of conflict in marriage. There are some causes that have been identified by researchers, and you cannot argue with research. On many occasions, it is speaking the truth. Violent behavior of husbands, but then lately we also have women that are violent. Lack of cooperation in the family, inability to spend enough time together, issues related to children and other families, silent treatment, resistance to your spouse's standpoint and choices, passive-aggressive behavior, selection of an inappropriate time and place to hold conversations, and a sense of threat in your voice. All this, lack of effective communication and financial problems, unmet or unrealistic expectations, and conflicting standpoints on the subject of children. So as we talk about causes of conflicts, inability to manage family finances is another, and allocation to marriage and personal pursuits when it comes to time. I'm moving quickly. Lack of sexual compatibility and mismatched dynamics and imbalanced power play in personality. Now, the reason I've listed them like that is so that I can discuss in brief each of those problems, not all because the time and not ours, but in brief, what can we do when we are faced with those conflicts, possible solution to such conflicts. So when we talk about unmet or unreasonable expectations, remember it's important to reach a middle ground, have a common consensus. Yes, sometimes it's easier said than done, but you have to look for a way as a couple and ask, how can we meet somewhere in the middle without being selfish? It takes a lot of practice and a conscious effort to ensure that you do not burn bridges with your spouse. When it comes to children, and like I said, some of these topics cannot even be covered in one day. but we appreciate God for the time that we have. You need to look at the intention of your spouse with a little kindness, and particularly when it comes to children, and also look at how they were brought up and see whether they are carrying forward their parenting styles as they were growing up to your family. Do not take a hard stand as a parent, because the other one is likely to stand aside. Because remember, every parent thinks of the best as far as their children are concerned. So these are just short nuggets to help us. Do not insist on your preferred parenting style. Try and meet somewhere in the middle. When it comes to finances, a marriage can derail because of money. We know that. There are marriages that have, have gone to the rocks because of money. So we cannot downplay the power of money to destroy marriages. A study that was done, and it was discovered that 22% of divorces are attributed to marriages, finance in marriage. Coming closely was infidelity and incompatibility. In other words, money came one, then infidelity, then incompatibility. So let's not downplay the aspect of money. If one of you is frugal, they are economists, and the other one is a spender, you must learn how to work out those differences. Otherwise, the spender will forever be thinking, why is so-and-so so mean? The frugal one will be thinking, anashikilia pesa kwa nini? You know, we need to do this, we need to do that. And some of the things the frugal person, the spender, wants to do are not adding value to the family. The frugal one might be holding on, and the money will not help the family. So it becomes quite tricky. One partner might be having a sitting sense of resentment. And this has really happened, by the way, whereby one person is forever feeling bitter. I'm always the one working. I'm the one bringing the money. I am the one contributing. This one is just depending on me. They're not even appreciative. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to look and ask, how can we meet in between so that you don't make the life of the other person miserable? Keep a financial journal and do not keep secrets when it comes to money. I know in Africa that is, a statement that's only written in books, but for real, do not keep secrets. It is very sad when, without giving any details, someone passes on, and later it is discovered that the husband or the father had millions in the bank, money, land, I mean, name it. And now the children have to be running around chasing managers of the properties that might as well keep it secret. So, I mean, secrets should not be kept, at least not to the people that you consider are closest to your heart. Allocation of time to marriage and personal pursuits. I have, I think, 5 minutes and I'll be done. A marriage comes with KRAs. They're called key responsible areas. After the wedding day extravaganza and honeymoon bliss, the reality comes knocking, the reality of marriage life. Am I saying the honeymoon should end just because you've been married for 20 years? No, but I'm saying in a literal sense, after honeymoon, there are dirty dishes. After 1 year, there's a child. There are some nights pacing the floor. You need to go to the hospital once in a while. So responsibilities are reality. Remember, the day remains the same in terms of time, but you have a new person here that needs your time, your spouse. They need your care. And really, you cannot ignore them. They also need to be taken care of. So trying to balance between your career and all this. I don't understand that. Okay, maybe you'll explain what that means. So personal hobbies, don't die. Let not the you die in the institution of marriage. Stay alive even as you take on these responsibilities that come with the institution of marriage. You have the challenging task of nurturing your marriage with your spouse in the best way possible. A quote by Maggie, who said, one of the best ways to ensure a good marriage is to continue to engage in the hobbies you did prior to marriage. This shows autonomy and independence and prevents enmeshment, or whatever that word is, in the relationship. In other words, you're not swallowed in the marriage institution. Okay, let's see. Listen to your spouse attentively, share interesting anecdotes, and maintain intermittent, reasonably timed communication spread over the course of a day. In other words, even if you don't have 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in the evening, keep chatting each other keep, kuchokoza each other in a nice way. So by the time you come in the evening, you have at least some base. You're not starting all over fresh. Sexual incompatibility, I'm moving as fast as I can. Misaligned sexual drives can drive a wedge between a couple, and particularly where there are major age differences. In this case, embrace other forms of intimacy with your spouse, so that there's one woman of God I love who said that the time sex takes a very small portion of people's lives, but it's been so exaggerated, and people tend to ignore the other forms of intimacy. So work on those. Schedule sex and go for weekly date nights. And I said yes, but it's not cast on stone, because when you think of schedules, you're like, okay, I scheduled for a meeting, then I scheduled for this. What if that day I'm too tired? What if that day I'm on the road going for a mission? So I leave it to you. It's not cast on stone. Vocalize your sincere attempts at satisfying the sexual needs of your partner. And so basically, usitupe ma surprises, which sometimes can be a surprise on yourself when the other person begins to snore, and that was the night you were all set, yeah, that was the night you were like really set, and then the guy just comes and falls asleep and they're snoring, and you're like, what? Did that just happen? So you need to vocalize your sincere attempts on matters of sex, even though we're in Africa where people don't want to talk about it. Finally, when we talk about communication, because it is one of the solutions we'll be talking about on top of all the others that we've talked about, approach communication with a problem-solving attitude. Do not drive a point home defensively. One of the challenges we have in our lives, all of us together, is that when you're talking to someone, they are busy preparing the answer they will give you. If you stop midway and ask them, okay, what did I tell you? They will just look at you blankly and say, please come again. They were not listening, but they were ready with an answer. Learn to listen. Recognize and acknowledge your part of the conflict. Whenever you conflict, seek clarification only after you've listened attentively to your spouse. Listening is a great part of conflict resolution. Do not stonewall or evade or obstruct your partner. At most, take a short break to collect and process the situation. And I'm finishing by saying, discuss the non-negotiables in your relationship, determine the deal breakers. When I talk about the non-negotiables, just talk when things are good and say, this is a no-no for me. Do not do this. I don't like it. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but kindly, this is a no-no. And then determine the deal breakers. For the men, a deal breaker could be, I'll take you on holiday. You're not manipulating your wife, but it is to say, wacha ishe tu. Wow, there's a mismatch dynamics. I'll request for 2 minutes so that I give it up at 8:50. When we talk about mismatched, is it okay to take 2 more minutes?
Yes, it's okay. It's okay.
Mismatched dynamics and imbalanced power play in personalities, where we have a spouse who is domineering versus submissive, manipulative, abusive, and one who is subservient. It becomes a big problem, because when one is domineering and another one is submissive, it's possible for the domineering one to forever take advantage, because the other one ni mpenda amani, hataki story mingi. Manipulative one and the one who is meek, again, there can be a problem. And so when there is an aspect of mismatching of dynamics, it's important for partners to put themselves in the shoes of the other and say they will put aside their domineering side and meet midway through with their spouse. And so with that, I know that we've said many things. Probably another time we will deal with other issues and as pertains communication. And at this point, I would say I am done. Thank you so much, and may the Lord bless you. I hope you have been blessed, and I hope you've learned something today that will help make your marriage healthier, and you will have better tactics of resolving conflict. So the Lord bless you. I hand it over to Walter. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. That was really, really powerful. Actually, we needed like a whole workshop because there is a lot to be covered. But we have really, really learned. Time may not allow me to run through, but we are taking a few questions. So the first question is, why is it that it's always me who initiates the conversation? It's boring and tiresome. So in a scenario where it's just one couple or one spouse who normally initiate the discussion. So what happens in such scenarios? How do you advise?
All right. First of all, the question is a bit ambiguous, but let me assume it's a couple that has come from home, from work, and they are both tired, and the other one wants them to talk. So,
Yes.
okay, maybe I can use us as an example, because even if it was a physical forum na mnatuona sisi wote, I would say this. Usually, there are times I'll tell my husband, please, weka simu chini, mimi nimeweka yangu flight mode, I want us to talk. So it's like, okay, what do you want us to talk about? Because there's a tendency of women, because we talk a lot, the man can zone off. Like umeongea, because he doesn't want to offend you. It's like, yeah, actually, yeah, that's very true. Then unamuliza what is true. And then he cannot answer what is true. And he just says that is very true. So for me, I say, please put away your phone. I want us to talk. Or when we go out for dinner, or we go out, just me and him, amwambia, please switch off the phone. I know you're busy. Watu wanakutafuta. I want us to talk. Anazima ama naeka flight mode. And we talk. So talk to him nicely and tell him, I want us to talk. I think if he loves you enough, he will consider that statement. Teach him to learn to talk to you. But it's unfortunate because, again, it's not a nice feeling when you have to beg your spouse to talk. You're the one forever forcing him to talk to you.
Yeah, or instead of saying it is true, you just say, I strongly agree. I strongly agree. So another question.
Goodness, true.
Another question, what about if both of the couples are spenders? Like you gave an example on finances. In a scenario where one person is a spender, the other person doesn't like spending. So what happens if it's vice versa? It's like both of them are.
Okay, I'll pick the advice once upon a time we were given by one of our late brothers, one of my late brothers-in-law, who told us that if you don't commit money, there will always be an issue that will arise to make use of the money that is in your hands. And he taught us as a young couple, learn to commit your money. Join a circle, take an insurance policy, do something that will automatically make some chunk of money go somewhere. If you don't commit money, the money has a way of committing itself. And so if you look at the money you spend probably going out, if you love going out for dinners, you'll be surprised it could actually buy you a piece of land somewhere. Money will always look for a way out. It's like water. Even if you contain water, it will look for a way out somehow. So that's what I would say, commit your money. Commit your money. Take an educational policy for your child. You'll be forced to pay it, and in the long run, you will thank me. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, then there is another question from the plenary where somebody is asking, what of the partners who don't appreciate anything, and how do you deal with them?
Okay, sorry. It's a funny question, but it's genuine.
Yeah.
It's okay. The partner, okay, at a personal level, I'm usually very grateful for small things. I think that's one of the reasons. I'm not saying I'm an angel, but I'm one person that will appreciate even the smallest thing that my husband does for me. And I think because of that, he finds it very easy to do stuff for me, and I'm blessed. I thank God. And it's easier to pick on the negatives. But if at some point he's not able to do something I would like him to do, I know it's because it's not because he intended not to do it. So I would say one of the things that men do not like, and I'm speaking to the ladies in the house, it is lack of gratitude and comparing your man to the neighbor. Uliona ile gari walinunua? Have you seen the house they've built? Thank him for being able to pay rent for you if you're not working. And even if you're working, look at what he does in that household and thank him. For the man, if you're not able to do much, thank your wife for the things she's doing for the family. I think that way, and sometimes even be open with each other and just say, sometimes it's good to just say thank you for what I've done, Be open. I don't think that is bad. To me, I think sometimes we fear to speak the truth. Tell your spouse, it's good to tell me thank you, by the way. Hata sisi huambiana hivyo. I'm not speaking out of obscurity. And someone is like, oh yeah, by the way, thanks. Nilikuwa nimesahau. Yeah, and your story inaisha hivyo tu.
Yeah, that is good. Another question, How
Yeah.
does regular communication about goals and aspirations contribute to marital satisfaction and long-term compatibility? You know, Reverend, at times these goals, they can really bring issues because at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, people
Yeah.
write goals. Then when you evaluate, you find that you have done nothing. So how do you think they can contribute to marital satisfaction and long-term compatibility?
Okay, I don't know whether the person meant personal goals or family goals, but I can try and pick both.
Family goals.
Okay, family goals.
Family
If,
goals. Yeah.
all right. If we are talking of family goals, one,
Yeah.
we can ask ourselves, are they realistic? If you have this project that clearly the finances do not allow, and even the time does not allow, maybe one spouse is busier
Yeah.
than the other, by the time June comes and you realize I've not accomplished this goal, just go back to the drawing board and say, it seems we may not be able to accomplish this, but then at least let's break down this goal into chunks and see what we can do. And that way, no one blames the other. So there's a word, I think one of the writers calls it to chunk down your goals. But let's not play chunk down your goals. Let's not play the blame game and blame one another. We are a team. So that's what I would say.
Okay. And
Do
then
what you can do.
okay. Then there is a question from the plenary. And when you know the truth will bring makasiriko, your partner. So how do you handle that? Actually, let me connect it with a question which I wanted, which had been asked earlier, where somebody was asking, in couples, establish healthy boundaries in communication to maintain respect and autonomy within the relationship. Meaning, how do you choose what to say? Like here he's saying italeta makasiriko. So
How
maybe
much truth and how much of the truth can you tell?
yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting question, but at the same time, I would say it's a tough one because let's say someone fell by the wayside. Maybe someone has been hitting on you in the office, and what you thought was a joke ended up not being a joke at all, that you fell. Do you just keep quiet and pretend it never happened? There's a way. The Bible says your sin will find you out. Of course, the worst is that it's likely your partner cannot stand it and he will say, this is it for us. It's likely you could separate if you tell the truth. If you don't tell the truth, one day the truth would come out and you will divorce. So I think this is really something that you need to decide. But I mean, it's not an easy question to answer. But let me also say this. When it comes to money, there's a tendency of families on either side to say, please give me some money, I have this problem. Then they forget when they meet your husband that they never consulted your husband. Then they're like, hey, thank you so much, Muli, to idea. And then because he doesn't want to expose the partner, he says, oh, that's fine. Oh, by the way, zilikuwa ngapi hata sikumbuki. And then the person says, it was 200,000 na tulisaidika sana. And then you remember you are asking your partner for only 10,000. That day, all trust is broken. It will take God for trust to be rebuilt. So I would say, may the Lord help you to know how far you can go with the truth because it is situation specific. It is very situation specific.
Wow, thank you so much, Reverend Anne, and thank you for giving us a very powerful insight.